I've been fighting Vivian Sinclair for 20 years, and I've never won. It's a family thing. A feud. She steals my contracts. I poach her talent. Except every time, I'm the one who ends up bleeding. Until the day she told me to call her daddy in front of everyone. That's when I snapped. I can't beat you. I roared. But I can marry you. The whole room went silent. She just smirked. Fine, let's go get the license. After we were married, I waited for the tears. Instead, she cornered me in the bedroom. So, husband, she whispered, how exactly did you plan on putting me in my place tonight? My knees went weak. This was not how the script was supposed to go, right? Me, Chase Sterling, once again wiped the floor with by that woman, Vivian Sinclair, in front of God and everybody. Just now, the bid results for that stupid tech campus project came in. Sinclair Corp., Vivian's family company, won. Again, that's the third, no, the fourth, major deal this year that I couldn't pry from her perfectly manicured fingers. Up on the stage, the event organizer was shaking her hand. She had that look on her face, the one I knew better than my own reflection. A nauseating cocktail of pity and pure mockery. The corner of her mouth ticked up, and her eyes swept over to me like I was a stray dog she just kicked to the curb. The handful of execs I'd brought with me were staring so hard at their shoes they were in danger of drilling holes through the leather. No one dared to breathe. The old sharks in a room, the industry veterans, darted glances between us, their minds probably already composing gleeful emails about it. The Sterling kid got his ass handed to him by the Sinclair girl. Again, it was the story of my life. She won the battle over the last toy truck in kindergarten. She got into the elite private middle school. I barely scraped by in public. She beat my SAT score by 50 points. She got into her first choice Ivy. I got waitlisted and ended up at my safety school. And now, taking over the family businesses? It was even worse. If both our companies wanted a piece of something 9 times out of 10, it ended up in her portfolio. Our families have been at each other's throats for 3 generations. The origin of the feud is some ancient, dusty crap I can't be bothered to look up. By the time it got to my dad and hers, a civil nod in a public place was considered a miracle. Then it got to us, and we grabbed that family feud baton and ran with it like it was the damn Olympics, cranking up the hostility year after year. Better luck next time, Sterling. Vivian glided past me, her voice just loud enough for the circle of vultures around us to hear. It was a light, feathery tone that felt like it was stroking your ego, but with a razor blade. My teeth ground together. I said nothing. 1,000 F-bombs detonated in my head, but on the outside, I had to keep it together. Can't lose my cool, even if I've already lost everything else. Seeing me choke on my rage seemed to energize her. She paused, tilting her head. Her voice deliberately rose. What's wrong, Chase? A little salty? Tell you what, call me Daddy, and maybe I'll consider letting you have a next one. Holy hell, the atmosphere in the room flash froze. Then came the stifled snickers. All the blood in my body rocketed into my head. 20 years of frustration, of stolen projects, of shredded dignity, of a childhood, adolescence, and young adulthood spent being ground into the dust by this woman. It all came to a head right then. My brain short-circuited. My mouth opened and words came out faster than thought. Vivian Sinclair, you pushed me too damn far. I might not be able to beat you. I was panting, my eyes locked on hers. I was all in. I yelled the most insane, ridiculous, nuclear option that flashed through my mind. But I can marry you, and put you in your place every single day. See how cocky you are then. Seriously, after I screamed that, you could have heard a pin drop. The people who'd been snickering were frozen, their mouths hanging open wide enough to catch flies. My assistant, Kevin, went pale. He tugged at my sleeve, his voice trembling. Mr. Sterling, calm down. I was stunned, too. What did I just say? Marry Vivian Sinclair? Had I completely lost my mind? This wasn't just shooting myself in the foot. This was taking a bazooka to my own leg just to maybe graze her. No, this was self-immolation with 0 enemy casualties. I braced myself for her to explode, to slap me, to eviscerate me with words sharper than any knife. She didn't. She blinked just once. Then, that mocking smile deepened, joined by something else I couldn't quite decipher. She looked me up and down, like she was inspecting a questionable piece of meat at the butcher's counter. Then, Her red-painted lips parted, and she uttered a single word. Fine. Me? Huh. She took a step closer, so close I could smell the sharp, intoxicating scent of her perfume invading my personal space. You want to marry me, right? Let's go. City Hall is still open. My calf muscles started to cramp. Wait. No. Vivian, you... What? She arched a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. Having second thoughts about that grand declaration you just made in front of half of New York's business community? Wimping out. Damn it. Me? Wimp out? In front of her. My insides were a swirling vortex of panic, but with all those eyes on me. A man can't back down. Who's wimping out? Let's go. I'm not scared of you. I jutted my chin out, all bravado. She smiled. It was the smile of a predator that had just watched its prey walk right into the trap. Then let's go, husband. That last word, she purred it. It was soft and airy and hooked, and made the hair on my arm stand up. Half my soul just evaporated. And that's how, in a complete daze, I was dragged by her, under the petrified stares of 100 people, out of the ballroom, into her car, and straight to City Hall. The whole way there, I kept thinking, did I just get played? Was she waiting for me to lose it? So, she could pull something like this? But to what end? Marriage is a damn tomb. What could she possibly want? The antique vases my grandma left us? No way. Her family's even richer than ours. Even standing on the steps of City Hall, holding that crisp marriage license in the bright afternoon sun, I felt like I was dreaming. The paper felt hot in my hand. In the photo, my expression was as stiff as a hostage. Her, on the other hand, she was smiling like she'd just won the lottery. Damn it, who was putting who in their place here? All right, legally, you're my husband now. Vivian tucked the license into her ridiculously expensive handbag with a casual air of someone who just signed a routine contract. I'll move into your place tonight. Text me the address on WhatsApp. Oh, and you should probably tell your parents. Don't want to give the old folks a heart attack. She said her piece, then click-clacked away in her heels, leaving me standing there, a lone idiot in the wind. Wait, that's it? No wedding? No prenup brawl? No meeting of the families for a ritualistic showdown? Just, efficiently, I'd sold myself into servitude. I looked down at the license, wanting to cry, but having no tears. What about my plan? My grand vision of marrying her and putting her in her place. This opening gambit was all wrong. Stealing myself, I went home to break the news to my parents. My dad was sipping his afternoon scotch. When he heard me say, I married Vivian Sinclair, he sprayed a mouthful of Macallan all over the wall opposite him and started coughing like he was trying to dislodge a lung. My mom's eyes rolled back in her head, and she nearly fainted. She clutched her chest for a solid minute, then pointed a trembling finger at me. Chase, honey, even if she's driven you to a complete mental breakdown, you can't do this. That's not a marriage. It's a suicide mission. Me? Well, at least my parents had a clear-eyed assessment of Vivian's capabilities. I spent half an hour spinning some garbage about how we were, madly in love, and decided on a strategic merger, a union of titans. It was a lie so transparent even a ghost could see through it, but my parents' expressions softened from "you're insane" to "you must be in some kind of trouble." And finally, they sighed and accepted it. The license was signed. Getting an annulment tomorrow would be even more humiliating for the sterling name. That night, just as promised, Vivian showed up with a suitcase. At my house. No, our home now. She made herself comfortable immediately, directing the housekeeper to take her luggage to the master bedroom. My bedroom. Then she started unpacking, casually moving all my clothes and toiletries into the guest room. Hold on. What do you think you're doing? I blocked the doorway. This is my house. This is my room. She folded her arms, looking at me. She'd just showered. Her hair was damp, and she was wearing a silk nightgown that showed off her long legs and made my head spin. It's our house now. I get the master. You get the guest room. Any objections? On what grounds? I was furious. This was my turf. On the grounds that I wanted. She smiled like a fox. Unless you'd rather fulfill some of your husbandly duties? I don't mind. I'm just afraid you can't handle it. Son of a man, can't admit he can't handle it. But looking at her eyes, her figure, and remembering her track record of utter annihilation, I wimped out. A total psychological and physiological retreat. The guest room is fine. I bit out, grabbing my pillow and comforter and scurrying away like a kicked dog. Lying in the unfamiliar guest bed, I was overcome with grief and rage. What the hell was this? I marry a woman and lose my own bedroom? What happened to putting her in her place? This was starting on insane difficulty. No, I had to man up. I had to show her who was the master of this house. Plan A. Economic sanctions. Cut off her supply lines. The next day, I canceled all my credit cards and the supplementary cards linked to my accounts. Let's see how cocky Vivian Sinclair is with no money, I thought. Turns out, she never even asked. I found out later that her personal net worth dwarfed mine. Worse, she had somehow charmed my own mother, who gave her a platinum card with a terrifyingly high limit and patted her hand, saying, "Vivian, dear, spend whatever you like. If Chase gives you any trouble, you tell me." Me. Plan A, dead on arrival. Plan B, create conflict. Make her life miserable until she gives up. I started leaving my socks everywhere, never did the dishes, and played video games at full volume until 2 in the morning. Her response? Nothing. She threw my socks in the trash. When I didn't do the dishes, she ordered takeout and ate delicious food by herself. When I blasted my games, she put on noise-canceling headphones and reviewed financial reports in the living room, completely ignoring me. My parents, however, called to chew me out for being an inconsiderate slob who didn't know how to treat his wife. Me. Plan B, also dead. Plan C, display masculine charm. Make her submit to my alpha energy. I spent a few days hitting the gym hard, got a decent pump, and made sure to walk around shirtless in front of her. She glanced over once and said, flatly, "Nice. Sterling Industries is hiring for security. You should apply." God damn it. Prononce, oblitrated. After a few rounds, I got the picture. Vivian Sinclair was a fortress. Teflon. Nothing stuck. My little schemes were like a toddler playing house in her world. She never argued, never yelled. She just looked at me with that expression one reserves for a particularly stupid insect, and occasionally, with a single, softly spoken sentence, she could make my blood boil. The put her in her place plan was a catastrophic failure. Not only had I failed to put her in her place, I felt like a monkey on a leash, and she was holding the other end, watching me dance. Life went on, a suffocating charade. In public, we had to pretend to be the happy couple, attending galas, smiling for the press. She was a natural, linking her arm through mine, her smile sweeter than honey, calling me darling in a tone that made my skin crawl. I could only play along, my own smile looking like I was suffering from a facial tic. Our relatives, who at first worried we'd kill each other, saw our respectful act and started saying how perfect we were for each other. Perfect my ass. What the hell did they know? I felt less and less like I'd married a wife, and more like I'd accidentally summoned an ancient, all-powerful deity who outclassed me in every conceivable way. Just when I was about to give up and resign myself to this life of quiet desperation, the game changed. A massive development deal, one that both our companies were fighting tooth and nail for, one that could define our futures for the next decade, suddenly hit a snag. A key investor who had been leaning towards Sinclair Corp ran into some legal trouble, and the whole project was put on ice. For Sterling Industries, this was a golden opportunity. I rolled up my sleeves, ready for war. Kick her while she's down. I was going to snatch this project and finally redeem myself. I spent the next few weeks working around the clock, calling in every favor, burning the midnight oil. I heard things were tense over at Sinclair Corp, too. Their stock had even taken a little dip. I was secretly thrilled. Serves you right, you smug witch. One night, after a long dinner meeting, I came home a little drunk well past midnight. The living room light was on. Vivian was on the sofa, a laptop open, her brow furrowed in concentration. She was in sweatpants and a t-shirt. No makeup, her hair thrown up in a messy bun. She looked almost vulnerable. No, must be the whiskey. I ignored her and started for the guest room. "Chase," she called out, her voice a little hoarse. I stopped, but didn't turn around. What? Does the great Vivian Sinclair finally need something from me? She didn't take the bait. "Give me a glass of water." An order? I wanted to snap back at her, but some strange impulse took over. I went to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and set it on the coffee table in front of her. I put it down a little too hard, and some of it sloshed onto the table. She didn't seem to notice. She picked it up, took a sip, and went back to staring at her screen, fingers flying across the keyboard. I just stood there awkwardly. If I left, it would look like I was scared of her. If I stayed, I had nothing to say. My eyes drifted to her face. Under the lamp, her eyelashes cast long shadows. Her nose was perfect. Her lips looked a little chapped. She looked exhausted. Something deep inside me softened, just for a second. I quickly squashed it. Mercy for the enemy is cruelty to yourself. Get a grip, Chase. That project, I said, my voice dripping with schadenfreude, looks like even Ms. Sinclair fumbles sometimes. Her typing stopped. She looked up at me. Her expression was a mix of exhaustion, annoyance, and something else. Something I couldn't read. Chase, she said, her voice low, sometimes I really want to crack open your head to see if there's anything in there besides sawdust. You. My temper flared. What good does it do Sterling Industries if this project collapses? She snapped her laptop shut and rubbed the bridge of her nose. The supply chain connects dozens of companies. Market confidence will crater. The whole sector will take a hit. You think you'll be immune? I froze. I hadn't really thought about that. I was too busy enjoying her failure. Grab. That's all you know. Just like your father, zero foresight. Her tone was laced with undisguised contempt. Who the hell are you calling short-sighted? I bristled. You. She shot to her feet and stalked toward me, tilting her head back to glare up at me. She was tall, but still had to look up. Chase, we've fought for 20 years. Besides petty tricks and cheap shots, what can you actually do? Is it so hard for you to win, just once fair and square? Her eyes looked a little red. Maybe it was the light. This is an opportunity. If you got any real talent, then use it. Revive this project. Make it happen. Then I'll admit you're a real man. Not like this, standing here like a bitter housewife, just sniping from the sidelines. She was breathing heavily, clearly furious. Her tirade left me completely stunned. My head was buzzing. Her words hammered at me. Yeah, what the hell can I do besides get mad at her? When was the last time I actually won anything on my own merit? Looking at her, furious and exhausted, my sense of satisfaction suddenly evaporated. In its place was a very strange feeling. It felt a little like my heart ached for her. No. Impossible. It's the whiskey. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. Finally, I managed to squeeze out a lame retort. Don't you look down on me. Then, like a coward, I fled to the guest room. Lying in bed, I couldn't sleep. Vivian's words echoed in my mind. Win fair and square. Revive the project. Real talent. Damn it. I'll show you. I don't know what came over me. Maybe it was my bruised ego. Maybe her challenge worked. Or maybe I just didn't want to see that look in her eyes again. I got up, opened my laptop, and started pulling every file I could find on the project. The next few days, I was a different person. I stopped thinking about how to get one over on Vivian and threw all my energy into the project. I called in every favor I had, analyzed every possible angle, and even secretly referenced some of the preliminary planning documents from her company. And I realized she really was brilliant. Many of her strategies and insights were levels above mine. Damn it, it sucks to admit your rival is that good. We inevitably cross paths, at meetings or through third parties. She was still all business, cold as ice. But sometimes, when I proposed a halfway decent idea, she'd give me a second look. That one look was enough to keep me buzzing for half a day. I was definitely losing my mind. Just as I was making some headway, it seemed like Vivian hit a major wall. I heard there was dissent within her company. A few major shareholders were putting pressure on her, and there were even rumors they might replace her as the project lead. One night, I worked late again. When I got home, I saw a sliver of light from under the master bedroom door. On a strange impulse, I walked over and knocked. No answer. I knocked again. It's unlocked. Her voice came, thick and stuffy. I pushed the door open. She was sitting on the bed, hugging her knees, her head buried in her arms. Her laptop was tossed to one side, screen still lit. On the floor were a few crumpled pieces of paper, looked like official documents. I had never seen this version of Vivian. She wasn't the invincible, razor-sharp warrior. She was curled up, her shoulders shaking slightly, like a stray kitten caught in the rain. My heart clenched. Hey, you okay? I softened my voice without meaning to. She didn't look up. Get out, she mumbled. I didn't. Instead, I walked over and picked up the papers. It was a formal notice from a coalition of shareholders demanding her removal from the project. Because of this, I waved the paper. She snapped her head up. Her eyes were red, with tear tracks still wet on her cheeks. She glared at me venomously. "Chase Sterling, are you here to gloat? Get out." Like this, she had no menace at all. She just looked pitiful. I sighed and sat on the edge of her bed, leaving some space between us. Honestly, yeah, it's a little satisfying. She grabbed a pillow and threw it at me. I caught it, but not that satisfying. She paused, staring at me. "Vivian," I looked at her red-rimmed eyes, and all my petty resentment just seemed to dissolve. "You were right. All this fighting is pointless. I can't save this project on my own." She said nothing, just watched me, her gaze wary and confused. I hesitated, then said something I never thought I would. "Let's team up." The air went still. She looked like she hadn't heard me right. "What?" I said, "Let's team up." I repeated, my own thoughts becoming clearer. Sinclair Corp has the early-stage tech and the channel partners. Sterling Industries has the liquid capital and some key political connections right now. If we go it alone, we both might fail. Together, we might be able to save this thing and make it even bigger than the original plan. She stared at me for a long time, as if trying to decide if this was a joke, a trap, or some new form of mockery. "Chase, are you on something?" "Probably," I said with a self-deprecating laugh. "You drove me to it." She was quiet for a moment, then looked down. "Why?" she asked softly. "Why?" I asked myself the same question. Was it because I wanted to beat her fair and square? But this was an invitation to win together. Was it because I couldn't stand to see her like this? Maybe a little. Or was it something else? Like, maybe I didn't want to see this proud, infuriating woman actually get broken. "There's no why," I said, turning my face away, feeling awkward. "I just think, as annoying as you are, you're competent. Better to keep the profits in the family. So, to speak, then let some outsider get it." That came out all wrong. She fell silent again. The silence stretched so long I thought she was going to refuse, and I was about to get up and leave. "Okay," she said it suddenly. I looked at her. She lifted her head. Her eyes were still red, but that familiar fire was back in them, sharp, cool, and with something else. Something I couldn't name. "We can cooperate." She wiped the corner of her eye, her tone returning to its usual decisiveness. "But I'm in charge. Damn it. This woman—" I was about to argue, but then I saw her eyes, still misty but fiercely determined, and the words died in my throat. "Fine," I gritted out. "You're ruthless." A tiny, fleeting smile touched the corner of her mouth. "So, partners." She held out her hand. I looked at her hand. It was slender and pale, but I knew how much power it held. After a moment's hesitation, I took it. Her skin was cool. "Partners," I said. My mind, however, was thinking, damn, her hand is actually pretty soft. Just when I thought this bizarre negotiation was over and I could go back to my own bed, Vivian suddenly threw back the covers and stood up. She walked right up to me, standing incredibly close. I had just stood up myself, and she was almost pressed against me, her head tilted back, her breath ghosting over my chin. Her just-cried eyes were glassy and held a kind of predatory glint. "Chase," she said my name, her voice husky from crying, yet deliberately softened. "Business is done. Shouldn't we talk about personal matters?" My heart hammered. Warning bells went off in my head. What personal matters? Her finger lightly tapped my chest, drawing lazy circles. Her eyes were like little hooks. "What do you think? Darling, we've been married for almost 3 months now, haven't we?" My throat went dry. I tried to step back, but my legs hit the edge of the bed, and I sat down hard. She leaned over me, her hands planting on either side of my body, trapping me between her and the mattress. The V-neck of her silk nightgown was a little low, and the view was making me dizzy. What do you want?" My voice cracked. This script was all wrong. Weren't we supposed to sleep in separate rooms? Wasn't I the one getting put in my place? She leaned in close to my ear, her warm breath a shock against my skin. She lowered her voice, using that tone that could make a single man's knees buckle. A little bit arrogant, a whole lot seductive. "So, husband, tonight, how exactly did you plan on putting me in my place?" "Me?" My knees went weak. I almost slid off the bed, looking at her face, so close to mine, her eyes glinting with cunning and triumph. Only one thought remained in my head. I'm screwed. It looks like For the rest of my life, I'm completely and utterly screwed. Plans? To hell with my plans. Change? This change was way too damn intense. My brain buzzed like a flashbang had gone off inside it. What did she call me? Husband? And with that damn tone, and putting me in my place? She was actually throwing the crazy, angry words I'd screamed at her back in my face in this. This context. A cold sweat broke out across my back. My heart was pounding like a drum solo against my ribs, so hard it made my eardrums ache. Me, Chase Sterling, a man about town. Okay, maybe not that much a man about town, but still a 6'1" adult male. When had I ever been cornered by a woman like this? Especially not with this kind of death by 1,000 cuts method. Vivian, you don't mess with me. My voice cracked. I tried to push myself back on the mattress to create some breathing room, but she had me pinned. The slightest movement made my knee brush against the hem of her nightgown, and the slippery feel of the silk sent a jolt through me, freezing me in place. Mess with you? She raised an eyebrow, her face so damn beautiful even without makeup, inching closer until our noses were almost touching. We're a legally married couple, fully licensed. How can you call this messing? The scent of her body wash mixed with that faint, cool fragrance that was uniquely hers, drilling its way into my senses. My throat was sandpaper. I swallowed hard, feeling like all the oxygen had been sucked out of the room. Who's licensed with you? That was a contingency plan. I tried to reclaim some of my authority, but the words sounded weak even to my own ears. A contingency that lost me the master bedroom? A contingency that got me trapped on a bed? She let out a soft laugh, her warm breath ghosting over my lips, making them tingle. Oh, so when Mr. Sterling was screaming in front of that entire ballroom about marrying me to put me in my place, that was also a contingency. Me. Damn it. Hoisted by my own petard. Why did my stupid mouth have to say that? I was angry. It doesn't count. I craned my neck back, my eyes darting around, unable to meet hers. It was like looking into two pools of fire that threatened to set me ablaze. Doesn't count. She drew out the last word, her finger tracing a slow line from my chest up to my shoulder. Everywhere she touched felt like it was on fire. I thought it was a pretty good idea. See, out there I put you in your place. In here, you put me in my place. Perfectly fair. Fair my ass. How is that the same thing? That was business competition, even if I never won. This was clearly a personal attack. Seduction. It was against the rules. Get up. I was getting flustered, reaching up to push her shoulder, but my hand froze halfway. Touching her anywhere felt wrong. She was in a thin nightgown. The delicate curve of her shoulder was clearly visible. I'm not getting up. She pressed down a little more, her weight shifting through her arms onto me. I could feel the softness and warmth of her body through her clothes. Chase, are you wimping out? There was again that all-knowing look. Who's wimping out? The challenge sent blood rushing to my head, and that pathetic shred of male pride took over. You think I'm scared of you? Not scared. Her gaze dropped, pointedly glancing at my ragged breathing and rigid posture, a wicked smirk playing on her lips. Then why are you trembling? I'm trembling with rage. Ooh, she cooed, her face a mask of I get it, I totally get it, which only made me want to grind my teeth. No, I couldn't let this go on. I had to fight back. I had to. But how? Push her away? That would just prove I was scared. And her skin felt kind of nice. No. Chase, what the hell are you thinking? Argue with her? I could never win a war of words with this woman. Then, that only left. A ridiculous, audacious thought popped into my head. If you can't beat them, join them? She wants to play? Fine, I'll play. Let's see who breaks first. My resolve hardened. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to calm down. Meeting her challenging, probing gaze, I tried to make my expression look cool, maybe even a little of her own infuriating brand of nonchalance. All right, I mimicked her tone, even managing what I hoped with a roguish grin. If Ms. Sinclair is so eager, then who am I to refuse? As I spoke, I tentatively lifted my hand and placed it on the arm she had braced next to my head. Her skin was smooth, a little cool. The moment I touched her, I felt her body tense almost imperceptibly. It was working. She wasn't completely immune after all. This discovery boosted my confidence. Right, just like that. Don't panic. The first one to panic loses. My fingers tightened slightly, stroking the delicate skin on the inside of her arm. I kept my eyes locked on her, deliberately slowing my speech. But how exactly does Ms. Sinclair want to be put in her place? Like this. I watched her reaction. A flicker of surprise crossed her face, as if she hadn't expected me to counterattack. But she quickly recovered her composure. Except, was that a hint of red creeping up her earlobes? Or, I pressed my advantage, my other hand coming up to wrap tentatively around her waist. I didn't dare apply real pressure, just held the pose. Like this. Her breathing hitched, just for a second. She tried to hide it, but at this distance I could feel it. I'd scored a point. I gloated internally. See, this woman was all talk. When it came down to it, she couldn't handle it either. Just as I was about to follow up with some more suave, confidence-boosting lines, she suddenly smiled. Not her usual mocking or challenging smile, but something deeper, something knowing and playful. Instead of pulling back, she leaned into my tentative embrace, bringing her lips almost to my ear. "Mr. Sterling," she whispered, her voice a breathy puff of air. "You seem to have a pretty good grasp of the theory. I just wonder, how's a practical experience?" Me? Damn it, that wasn't in the script. Wasn't she supposed to get flustered or angry and push me away? How did she turn around on me again? Practical experience? I had zero damn practical experience. My entire practical experience consisted of losing battles to her. The cool facade I'd so carefully constructed shattered. The hands on her arm and waist went rigid. She saw my embarrassment and let out a low laugh. The vibration of her chest traveled through her thin nightgown, sending my own heart into a panicked flutter. Looks like she extended the tip of her tongue and quickly licked her lips, a gesture that made my heart stop for a second. I might have to personally give you some pointers. Pointers? Pointers on what? On how to put her in her place? My brain turned to mush. CPU overloaded, graphics card fried. All my plans, my schemes, my defiance. All of it was obliterated by her soft words and small gestures. Looking at her lips, so close, feeling the warmth and scent of her body, seeing the mix of challenge, seduction, and something else I couldn't decipher in her eyes. I gave up. Damn it, I can't beat her. I really can't. I squeezed my eyes shut, a gesture of both surrender and desperation, and yelled, "Do whatever you want. Just get on with it." The second the words were out, I regretted them. What kind of idiotic line was that? I sounded like a lamb to the slaughter. The expected mockery never came. I felt the pressure of her arms on either side of me release. The weight on me lifted. Confused, I opened my eyes. She had straightened up and was standing by the bed, arms crossed, looking down at me with an infuriatingly calm, playful expression, as if the seductive, aggressive woman from a moment ago had been a figment of my imagination. "All right, I'll stop teasing you," she said, her tone light, like someone who just pulled off a successful prank. "Look at you, what a wimp." Me? Teasing me. That whole performance was just a mess with me. A wave of humiliation and anger washed over me. I shot to my feet, my face burning. "Vivian Sinclair, you were playing me? What else?" She raised an eyebrow and walked over to her dresser to pick up a glass of water, taking a slow sip. "You think I actually want to sleep with you?" She turned around, gave me a head-to-toe scan, her eyes filled with undisguised disdain. You. Those two words were like daggers, plunging straight into my fragile male ego. What's wrong with me? I nearly jumped out of my skin. I'm rich. I'm handsome. I'm in shape. What about me isn't good enough for you? Rich, she scoffed. Richer than me? Handsome, she glanced at me. You're average at best. In shape, her eyes roamed over my body. All that time in the gym. Useless. Son of a bitch. That was a verbal execution. I pointed at her, my finger trembling, unable to form a coherent sentence. But she was completely unfazed. She put down her glass and let out a small yawn. "All right, it's late. I'm going to bed. You go back to your guest room." She walked to the door, opened it, and made a go-on gesture. Her posture, her tone, it was like she was shooing away a dog. My chest heaved. I felt like an overinflated balloon about to pop. I shot her one last murderous glare, then, grinding my teeth, I practically tripped over my own feet walking out of the master bedroom. The door clicked shut behind me. I heard the lock turn. I stood in the hallway, staring at the closed door, feeling a toxic mix of frustration, rage, and a strange, undeniable sense of loss. Damn it. I slammed my fist into the adjacent wall. Pain shot through my knuckles. Vivian Sinclair, you just wait. I will have my revenge. Even though I never, ever seemed to succeed. Damn it. This life was impossible, right? Me, Chase Sterling, had never felt this humiliated in my entire 20-something years of existence. Wiped the floor with by the same person in the same way, over and over again. The worst part was, this time it was on my own turf. On my own bed. Okay, it was the guest bed, but still my bed. I tossed and turned on that unfamiliar, uncomfortable mattress, feeling like a fish sizzling in a pan. My mind replayed the last hour on a loop. Vivian's misty eyes, her lips so close, her seductive tone, and that final, crushing you. Arg. I grabbed my hair in frustration, wanting to bury my head in the pillow and suffocate myself. It was so embarrassing. I actually fell for it. I even closed my eyes. What the hell was I expecting? That she'd actually kiss me? Wake up, Chase. This is Vivian Sinclair, the woman who steals your contracts, poaches your talent, and told you to call her daddy. But the way she looked when she was crying, it was really different. No, crocodile tears. A tactical retreat to lull me into a false sense of security. How could I have been so soft? And I offered to team up with her? Was I dropped on my head as a child? Team up with her? The thought of sitting at a table with her tomorrow, discussing the project, made my skin crawl. That woman would seize every opportunity to mock me, belittle me, and show off how much smarter she was. No, I absolutely could not let her lead me by the nose. I'd get back on top. The next morning, I came downstairs with 2 dark circles under my eyes, deliberately dawdling to avoid having breakfast with her. But when I got to the dining room, she was already there, dressed in a sharp, tailored suit, her hair in a perfect chignon, calmly sipping a glass of milk. The sunlight streamed through the window, catching the side of her face and making her glow. It was annoyingly beautiful. She glanced at me, her expression neutral, as if looking at a piece of furniture. Morning, I grunted in response, pulling out a chair with a loud scrape. The housekeeper brought my breakfast. I picked up my fork and went to work, treating the fried egg like her face, stabbing it to shreds. Chase, she said suddenly. My fork froze. What? I bit out. Regarding the partnership, I've drafted a preliminary framework. Come to the study after breakfast to review it. Her tone was all business, completely devoid of emotion. Oh, I mumbled. Inside, I was cursing. See? She's already giving orders, acting like she's in charge. I scarfed down my breakfast and followed her into the study. She opened her laptop, pulled up a document, and began to explain her strategy in concise, clear terms. How to integrate our resources, how to navigate the political hurdles, how to mitigate the risks. At first, I was listening with the intent to find fault, to poke holes in her plan. But as she went on, I had to admit the woman was a goddamn genius. Her thinking was clear, her logic was airtight, and her grasp of the market and policy was terrifyingly precise. She considered details I hadn't even thought of. She even had contingency plans for several potential crises. She was leagues ahead of me. My defiance deflated like a popped balloon, replaced by a complex mix of sourness, admiration, and a touch of inadequacy. That's the general idea, she finished, looking at me. Do you have anything to add? Or any objections? I opened my mouth, wanting to say something, anything just to prove I existed, but my mind was blank. Her plan was too perfect. I couldn't find a single flaw. No, nothing, I said, looking down, feeling defeated. Good. She closed her laptop and stood up. 2 o'clock this afternoon. We're meeting with Mr. Lawson from City Planning. You're coming with me. It was an order. I frowned, about to snap back. Why do you get to tell me what to do? But I swallowed the words. Partnership. Damn it, I had to endure it. Got it, I mumbled. She walked to the door, then paused and looked back at me, her gaze assessing. Chase, since we're partners now, try to be professional. Don't bring your personal feelings into our work. Are you kidding me? Who was the one bringing in personal feelings last night? Who was the one launching personal attacks? I wanted to slam my fist on the desk, but she was already gone. The meeting with Mr. Lawson that afternoon went smoothly. Vivian led the conversation. I was mostly a prop, chiming in with a few points when she gave me a look. She was eloquent, poised, demonstrating her professional expertise while subtly flattering him. She had the man eating out of her hand. I sat there, watching her work her magic, a sour taste in my mouth. This woman was a hell of an actress in public. On the way back to the office, she leaned back in her seat and closed her eyes. The sunlight filtered through the car window, casting shadows from her long eyelashes. I studied her covertly. Without the sharp edge of negotiation, she looked quiet and tired. There were faint bluish circles under her eyes. Did she not sleep well last night? Because of the pressure from her shareholders? That strange, unwelcome feeling started bubbling up again. Hey, I couldn't help but say, my voice a bit raspy, so I guess we've got Lawson on board. She didn't open her eyes, just grunted. What's next? I asked, just to fill the silence. Meeting with Director Williams at the Economic Development Corp. Then with Mr. Davis at the bank, she said, her voice weary. I'll have my assistant schedule it. I'll let you know. Oh, I said. The car fell silent again. After a while, another question popped out of my mouth, unbidden. You didn't sleep well last night. She finally opened her eyes and gave me a surprised look, as if shocked that I would ask. I'm Fina. That familiar, distant tone. I felt a flash of irritation and turned to look out the window. Who cares? Just making conversation. She didn't say anything else. I watched the city blur past, my mind a jumble. This partnership had just begun, and I already felt suffocated. Just being in the same space with her felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room. The next few days, we were practically inseparable. Meetings together, client dinners together, late nights revising proposals together. I got a full, unfiltered dose of Vivian's work ethic. She was like a tireless machine, sharp mind, decisive, with an attention to detail that was almost pathological. She had me running in circles, checking data, tweaking slide decks, dealing with difficult intermediaries. It was exhausting, but strangely, as I watched the dying project slowly come back to life in our hands, I felt a weird sense of accomplishment. And as we spent more time together, I realized she wasn't always cold as ice. One time, we were rushing to finish a report late at night. I couldn't take it anymore and fell asleep with my head on the desk. When I woke up, her jacket was draped over my shoulders. The office smelled of fresh coffee, and she was at her computer, fingers flying, her profile illuminated by the desk lamp, looking incredibly focused. Another time, a call with a supplier went south. The guy was being a jerk, and I was about to lose my temper. She heard it, calmly took the phone from my hand, and spoke a few sentences in a voice so cold it could cause frostbite. The guy on the other end immediately backed down, apologizing profusely. When she handed the phone back, her expression was as impassive as ever, but somehow, I didn't hate her as much. Damn it, was this Stockholm Syndrome? No. Get a grip, Chase. This is Vivian Sinclair, your nemesis, the woman who's been beating you your whole life. You can't be bought with a jacket and a phone call, but she did look kind of cool when she was focused. No, annoying. She was very annoying. Tonight, we worked late again, finally finishing the final version of the feasibility report for the bank. I stretched, feeling like my bones were about to turn to dust. Finally done. I am starving. Order some food. She rubbed her temples and glanced at the clock. It's too late for takeout. Let's go home and make some pasta. Go home. Make pasta? I blinked. She meant our home. You know how to make pasta? I was skeptical. She seemed like the type whose fingers had never touched a raw ingredient. Are you offering to cook? She glanced at me, already packing her things. I had nothing to say to that. Fine, you win. Back at her nominal home, she went straight to the kitchen. I stood in the doorway like a lost puppy, watching her expertly boil water, wash vegetables, crack eggs. She actually looked like she knew what she was doing. Under the warm kitchen lights, she was wearing my stupid cartoon character apron. I have no idea where she found it. Her hair tied back loosely, a few stray strands framing her face. Steam rose from the pot, softening her profile. The scene was oddly cozy. The thought startled me. Cozy? With Vivian Sinclair? What kind of joke was that? What are you standing there for? She said without turning. Get the bowls. Oh, I obediently went to get the bowls. Soon, 2 steaming bowls of simple pasta with a fried egg and some greens were on the table. It looked plain, but it smelled amazing. I took a bite. It was Actually really good. Pizza hair. She was eating quietly, taking small bites. The light danced on her eyelashes, and the tip of her nose was slightly red from the steam. A corner of my heart felt like it had been scalded by this bowl of pasta and this warm light. So, I clear my throat, trying to break the strange atmosphere. If this project actually works out, how are we splitting the profits? She looked up, her expression calm. Based on our respective contributions and investments, it will be specified in the contract. Oh, I went back to eating. A moment later, Vivian, I said her name. Thanks for the jacket the other night. I mumbled, my voice barely audible. Her eating paused for a fraction of a second. She didn't look up. I was afraid you'd get sick and pass it to me, she said flatly. It would have delayed the project. I knew it. Any trace of warmth I'd felt was instantly extinguished. I furiously shoveled a mouthful of pasta, chewing as if it were her flesh. This woman was still just as infuriating as ever. But why did I feel like I didn't want to put her in her place anymore? Why did this? Feel kind of okay. I'm screwed. I think I'm really sick. And it's bad. The steam from the pasta swirled between us. I kept my head down, shoveling food into my mouth, but my mind was a chaotic mess. That thank you had just tumbled out of me, and I regretted it instantly. Her afraid you'd pass it to me was a classic Vivian move, a splash of ice water right when you start to think she might have a shred of humanity. I chewed aggressively, my cheeks puffed out, and snuck another look at her. She ate so elegantly, small, precise bites, but she was making quick work of her bowl. The warm dining room light caught on her lowered lashes, making her look almost sweet. No, hallucination. Definitely a hunger-induced hallucination. What are you looking at? She suddenly looked up, her gaze locking onto mine. I nearly choked on a mouthful of pasta, erupting into a violent coughing fit, my face turning beet red. She put down her fork, pulled a napkin from the holder, and handed it to me, a look of mild disgust on her face. Eat slower. No one's going to steal it from you. I snatched the napkin, wiping away the tears that had sprung to my eyes, feeling even more humiliated. What the hell was wrong with me? In front of her, I always seemed to turn into a clumsy, foolish kid. Once I could breathe again, I crumpled the napkin and tossed it on the table. I wasn't looking at you. I snapped. I was thinking how great it'll be when this project succeeds, just to see the looks on the faces of those shareholders at Sinclair Corp, who tried to oust you. The hand holding her fork paused. She then resumed eating, her voice flat. What they think is irrelevant. How is it irrelevant? I pressed, sensing a weak spot. You'll be the hero of Sinclair Corp. No one will dare mess with you again. The thought of it is so satisfying. She looked up, her gaze deep and steady, as if she could see right through me. Chase, are you feeling sorry for me? My heart skipped a beat. Who's feeling sorry for you? I'm looking forward to the drama. Yeah, the drama. I just want to see those old geezers eat crow. Her lips seemed to curve into a smile for a split second. Then it was gone. She looked back down at her pasta and murmured, childish. Me? Huh, fine, I'm childish. You're mature. You're a genius. You're an unmovable mountain of composure. I furiously lifted my bowl and chugged the rest of the broth, then slammed it down on the table with a loud clatter to express my displeasure. She didn't even flinch. Damn it. It was like punching a pillow. The partnership continued, and the project moved forward with surprising speed. A strange kind of understanding formed between Vivian and me. In public, we were the loving couple, the poster children for strategic mergers. In private, we were reluctant partners, tied together by necessity. She was still sharp-tongued, poking at me with little jabs. I had learned not to explode at every provocation and could sometimes even return fire with some sarcasm of my own. I usually lost, but at least it wasn't as suffocating. I discovered that when you stripped away the Family Feud filter, Vivian Sinclair was an incredible person. Her mind was a steel trap, and she was ridiculously competent. Working with her was high pressure, but I was learning more than I ever had. Moves I never would have considered. She executed flawlessly. One day, we finally secured the last piece of the puzzle, a massive line of credit from the bank. The biggest financial hurdle was cleared. Leaving the bank tower, the city lights were just beginning to flicker on. The evening breeze was cool and refreshing. I let out a long breath, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. I glanced at Vivian. Her face also held a trace of relief. We finally did it, I said. She replied, tucking a windswept strand of hair behind her ear. A comfortable silence fell between us. The rush hour traffic flowed past, neon lights reflecting off her face. On a whim, I said, "Want to celebrate?" I immediately wanted to take it back. Celebrate? With her? Celebrate what? A temporary truce? She turned, looking surprised. Celebrate. Just grab a bite or something, I said, my eyes darting away. We've been working like dogs. I know, a hole-in-the-wall barbecue place nearby. That's amazing. God knows why I suggested barbecue. It was the complete opposite of Vivian Sinclair. She didn't answer right away, just studied me with a curious expression. I was getting uncomfortable, about to say never mind when she nodded. Okay, me? Huh. She was already walking. Lead the way. I stood there for a second, stunned, then hurried to catch up. She actually agreed. The barbecue joint was tucked away in an alley, a bit of a dive, but the food was legendary. It was already packed, loud and smoky. Vivian, in her designer suit and stilettos, looked completely out of place standing in the greasy doorway. She wrinkled her nose slightly. My heart sank. Of course, she hated it. We can go somewhere else. It's fine. She walked in and found a relatively clean booth in the corner, sitting down as if she did this every day. I followed, sliding in opposite her. What do you want? You order, she said, pulling out a tissue to meticulously wipe down the table. I ordered a bit of everything: lamb skewers, beef ribs, grilled corn, a couple of cold beers. The wait was awkward. The restaurant was filled with the boisterous sounds of people drinking and laughing. Our table was a small island of silence. I stuck a look at her. She sat perfectly straight, calmly observing her surroundings. No disgust, no curiosity, just observation. You've never been to a place like this before, have you? I asked, trying to make conversation. I have, she said simply. I was surprised. What? When? In college with friends, she said, her tone flat. Not much since then. I tried to picture her in jeans and a t-shirt, sitting in a smoky barbecue joint, drinking beer with friends. The image wouldn't form. Didn't take you for the type, I muttered. She looked at me. Chase, do you really think people like me spend all our time in five-star hotels sipping vintage wine? She'd hit the nail on the head. I felt a flush of embarrassment. Well, no. Just then, the food and beer arrived, the rich, smoky aroma filling the air. I poured her a beer, foam spilling over the top. She took the glass without comment, her cool fingertips brushing against mine. A toast. I raised my glass. To milestone for the project. She looked at her glass, then at me, hesitated for a second, then raised it and lightly clinked it against mine. The sound was crisp and clear. I took a huge gulp. The cold liquid was pure bliss. She, on the other hand, took a tiny ladle-like sip and frowned slightly. I couldn't help but smile. That's not how you drink beer, Sinclair. You gotta go big. She ignored me and gracefully picked up a skewer. I didn't mind, happily digging into the food. After a few ribs and half a beer, I was feeling loose. Honestly, Vivian, if it weren't for you, this project would be dead in the water, I said through a mouthful of chicken wing. Those contingency plans you made were genius. How do you come up with that stuff? She dabbed her mouth with a napkin, a gesture as elegant as if she were at a Michelin star restaurant. It's called doing your homework. Oh, come on. Spare me. I waved a hand. I know my brain doesn't work like yours. I used to think you were just lucky or you played dirty. But now, I paused, took another swig of beer, and let the alcohol do the talking. Now I'll admit it. You're a damn rock star. The hand holding her skewer froze. She looked up at me, a flicker of surprise in her eyes. I felt a little exposed under her gaze. What? Can't you take a compliment? She didn't answer, just looked back down at her food, but I could have sworn. Was she smiling? Must be the dim lighting. We talked more about the project, and before I knew it, both beers were empty. I was feeling a little buzzed. Hey, Vivian, I said, propping my chin on my hand. All these years we've been fighting. Was there any point to it? No, she answered without hesitation. Then why were you always coming after me? You started it. When did I? I started to argue, then thought back. Okay, maybe I did pull her pigtails in first grade. That was decades ago. You hold a grudge. Takes one to know one, she said, nibbling on a mushroom. Watching her, a thought popped into my head, and I blurted it out. You know, if you weren't so sarcastic and arrogant all the time, you'd be all right. She froze, then looked up at me, her eyes sharp. Chase, are you drunk? I'm not drunk, I insisted. I'm serious. Just like this, having a quiet meal. Isn't this better? Why we have to be at each other's throats all the time? Isn't it exhausting? She just looked at me, her expression unreadable, as if trying to figure out if I was being sincere. The night wind swirled around us, carrying the smell of charcoal and city life. The noise of the restaurant faded into the background. For the first time ever, there was a peaceful, even slightly charged silence between us. After a long moment, she put down her skewer, wiped her hands, and stood up. Let's go. It's late. I stood up too, a little unsteadily. I'd had a bit too much. We paid and walked back to the car. The cool air made my head spin. She walked beside me, the street lights stretching our shadows long, occasionally letting them overlap. My mind started to wander. What if we weren't from feuding families? What if it'd always been like this? Would things be different? The thought scared me. I shook my head, trying to clear it. It's the beer. Definitely the beer. We reached the car. She unlocked it. I got into the passenger seat, fumbling with the seatbelt. She got in, started the engine, but didn't drive off. The car was quiet except for the low hum of the AC. I leaned back and closed my eyes, the world tilting. Chase, she said suddenly, her voice clear in the enclosed space. Yeah. I answered, not opening my eyes. What you said tonight, I'm going to forget it. Her voice was calm, neutral. And you should too. The warm, fuzzy feeling from the beer instantly vanished. It was like a bucket of ice water over my head. I opened my eyes and looked at her. She was staring straight ahead, her profile hard in the dim light. What? I heard myself ask, my voice hoarse. She was silent for a few seconds before answering, her tone laced with that familiar, cool detachment. Because we don't work. Don't work. 3 words, like 3 needles, straight to the heart. She was right. Feuding families, lifelong rivals, 20 years of mutual dislike. The brief moment of peace we'd just had was an illusion, a byproduct of Project stress and alcohol. I tried to smile, but my face wouldn't cooperate. My chest felt tight. Got it, I said, closing my eyes again and turning my head toward the window. Drive. The car pulled smoothly into the night. I watched the city lights streak past, feeling like a part of me had just been hollowed out. Damn it, this beer was stronger than I thought. The day the project officially launched was a huge affair. The signing ceremony was in the city's fanciest hotel ballroom, camera flashes popping everywhere. The room was packed with city officials, clients, and reporters who had caught wind of the story. The Sterling and Sinclair heirs, mortal enemies, joining forces to pull off a miracle deal. It was irresistible. I stood on stage in a perfectly tailored suit, hair slicked back, with Vivian beside me, equally polished and powerful in a designer pantsuit. We signed the documents, exchanged folders, and shook hands. The room erupted in applause. I pasted a standard business smile on my face, but my palms were sweating. Not because of the crowd, but because of the woman next to me. Her hand was cool and slender, and when I took it, I could feel the faint tension in her fingers. After the ceremony came the reception. Vivian and I were swarmed. People congratulating us, people fishing for information. She handled it all with practiced grace, a perfect smile on her face, her arm linked through mine as she played the part of the perfect wife. I played along, smiling and clinking glasses on cue, but my mind was elsewhere. My gaze kept drifting to her. She wore elegant makeup today, her lipstick a bold red that made her skin look flawless. Under the chandeliers, she was almost unreal. Mr. Sterling, Ms. Sinclair, congratulations, a smug voice cut in. I turned to see one of the Sinclair Corp. Shareholders who had given Vivian the most trouble, a portly man named Wallace. Mr. Wallace. Vivian's smile didn't falter, but her tone cooled. Vivian, my dear, you've done a marvelous job. Wallace boomed, his eyes darting between us. We were all so worried the project would collapse, but you and Mr. Sterling, a true power couple, pulled it out of the fire. Truly impressive. The words were praise, but the tone was pure acid. I felt my jaw tighten, but Vivian gave my arm a slight squeeze, a silent order to stand down. She stepped forward slightly, her smile widening as her eyes narrowed. "You're too kind, Mr. Wallace. The project's success is thanks to the entire team, and of course, the support of our shareholders." She paused, her gaze sweeping over him and a few other uncomfortable-looking investors. And it certainly helped that, at the critical moment, no one was actively trying to sabotage it. Otherwise, even a power couple might not have been enough, don't you think? Wallace's jowls quivered. His smile froze. Of course, he muttered before scurrying away. I watched him retreat, feeling a surge of satisfaction. This woman was still lethal with her words, but for some reason, this time it felt good. "Nice one, Sinclair. A real killer," I murmured into her ear. She glanced at me, a corner of her mouth lifting. "Takes one to know one. Your fists were clenched pretty tight back there. Planning on punching him?" I was caught feeling a little awkward. I couldn't stand the look on his face. "In this business, you get used to faces like that," she said, her expression becoming neutral again. After fending off a few more waves of people, my face ached from smiling. I slipped away to the buffet table, starving. I just picked up a mini cheesecake when I overheard two women talking nearby, their eyes flicking toward Vivian. "So, that's Vivian Sinclair? She's even more stunning in person. Seems a bit stuck up, though. Wouldn't you be? Great family, gorgeous and brilliant. I heard she basically ran this whole project. The Sterling heir was just along for the ride. Yeah, you can see it. Standing next to her, Chase Sterling looks a little out of his league. Totally." The cheesecake in my hand suddenly tasted like ash. Along for the ride? Out of his league. I knew people would think that, but hearing it stung. A heavy, damp feeling settled in my chest. I put the cake down, my appetite gone. As I looked up, Vivian was walking toward me. She must have heard them too, because she shot the women a cool look, and they immediately clammed up and walked away. She came to my side and handed me a glass of champagne. Hiding out, I took the glass, but didn't drink. "Just getting some air," I mumbled. She studied my face for a moment. "Don't listen to them," she said, her voice low. "The project is done. The money is real. That's what matters." I knew she was right, but I couldn't shake the feeling. "In your eyes, am I just along for the ride?" The question escaped before I could stop it. It sounded pathetic. She paused, seeming surprised by the question. She swirled the golden liquid in her glass. "Chase," she looked up at me, her gaze serious. "Without the connections you brought in early on, without you securing that line of credit from the bank, this project would have failed. As good as I am, I couldn't have done it alone." She paused again, her tone taking on a rare, almost vulnerable honesty. "We were partners. We both got what we needed. We helped each other succeed. No one was just along for the ride. Partners. We helped each other succeed." It was a logical, very Vivian-like statement. But somehow, hearing it, the tightness in my chest eased. At least she acknowledged my contribution. She didn't think I was useless. "Come on." She raised her glass. "The party's not over. Mr. Sterling still needs to play his part." There was a hint of playful mockery in her eyes. Looking at her smile, my mood lifted. I grinned back and downed the champagne in one go. "Fine, let's go ride." The reception finally ended. We were both exhausted on the drive home, the car silent. I leaned against the headrest, watching the city lights blur past, my mind a jumble of the day's events, the signing, the gossip, and Vivian's words. We pulled into the underground garage and rode the elevator up in silence. In the confined space, her faint perfume mixed with the scent of champagne. I watched her standing in front of me, her back straight and elegant, projecting that familiar keep-out aura. The gossip from the party echoed in my head. Along with her, we were partners. A mix of frustration and a strange, reckless impulse began to build in my chest. The elevator dinged. The doors opened. She walked out. I followed her down the hall, and without thinking, I called out, "Vivian." She stopped and turned, a question in her eyes. I walked up to her, closing the distance between us until I could see the faint flutter of her eyelashes. The alcohol and a wave of raw emotion crashed inside me. What if? I heard my own voice, rough and strained. What if it wasn't just about what we both needed? She froze, her eyes widening slightly as she tried to understand. I took a deep breath and threw myself off the cliff. What if? I'm serious about this. It was out. The words hung in the air, sucking all the energy out of me, shattering the fragile peace between us. She just stood there, staring at me, her expression a whirlwind of shock, disbelief, and... was that panic? Yes, panic. I'd never seen that look on her face before. The motion sensor light in the hallway timed out, plunging us into darkness. I could hear my own heart pounding and the ragged sound of her breathing. After what felt like an eternity, the light flickered back on. Her face was composed again, but her eyes were still a storm. She opened her mouth, closed it, then finally shook her head, her voice a near whisper, laced with something like sorrow. "Chase, don't be a fool." Then she turned, unlocked her door, and slipped inside. She didn't look back. The door closed softly in my face, cutting off all light and sound. I stood alone in the dim hallway, feeling like a statue. Don't be a fool, right? I dragged a hand down my face, a bitter, ugly smile twisting my lips. Yeah, a complete, utter fool. The soft click of the door, closing, echoed like a gunshot in my ears. Don't be a fool. Those 3 words, spoken so quietly, extinguished the last of the hopeful, drunken fire that the project's success had ignited in me. I stood in the hallway until my legs went numb. The motion sensor light cycled on and off, a silent, blinking mockery of my idiocy. Finally, I dragged my leaden feet back to the guest room. I didn't turn on a light, just collapsed onto the bed. In the darkness, the ceiling was a gray blur. My mind replayed the scene on a loop, her shocked eyes, her whispered warning, the finality of the closing door. Damn it. Chase, you really are an idiot. Why'd I have to say that? Serious about this? About Vivian Sinclair? What were we? A family feud. Lifelong rivals who had spent 20 years trying to destroy each other. So what if we had a temporary truce, a weird understanding forged in the fires of a high-stakes project? That didn't change the fundamental truth. She looked down on me. I thought she was an arrogant, domineering witch. We both got what we needed. That was the real, safe version of our relationship. And I had to go and try to break it. I rolled over and buried my face in my pillow, a wave of shame, regret, and a profound sense of loss washing over me. I slept terribly, plagued by nightmares. The next morning, I emerged from my room with even darker circles under my eyes, braced for Vivian's cold shoulder and inevitable sarcasm. But the dining room was empty. The housekeeper informed me that Ms. Sinclair had left for the office early. I paused, not sure if I was relieved or more disappointed. Was she avoiding me? Fine. It saved us an awkward conversation. At the office, I went out of my way to avoid her. She seemed to be doing the same. Any remaining project details were communicated through our assistants. Overnight, we had reverted to our old Cold War status, only worse. Before, we at least shared a roof and could trade insults. Now, we didn't even see each other. The house felt vast and empty. The master bedroom door was always closed. She came home late and left early. I was pretty sure she was deliberately timing it to miss me. This pointed avoidance was worse than an open fight. It was a constant, nagging reminder of what had happened. I tried to drown myself in work, but my mind kept drifting back to her, to the late nights, the bowl of pasta, the barbecue joint, and her shocked expression in the hallway. Damn it, get over it. I slammed a file down on my desk. Mr. Sterling, Kevin, my assistant, poked his head in. It's nothing. I snapped. Get out. He vanished. I leaned back in my chair, rubbing my temples. This couldn't go on. I had to do something. But what? Go knock on her door and say, sorry, I was drunk. I didn't mean it? That would be even more pathetic. Confront her? Ask her what her problem was? If she hated me so much, she couldn't even stand to look at me. What if she said yes? I didn't think I could handle that. I was trapped. This strange, silent standoff lasted for nearly a week. Just as I was about to lose my mind, the situation changed, though not in a way I would have chosen. My mother called. A family gathering on the weekend. I was to bring Vivian. Mom, she's really busy at work, maybe. I tried to make an excuse. Busy with what? The project is done. My mother wasn't buying it. I don't care. You'll bring Vivian. You've been married for months, and you've barely brought her home. What will people think? Did you hear me? Sunday evening. Don't be late. She hung up. I stared at my phone, my headache intensifying. How was I going to ask Vivian? Would she even agree? I sent her a text, keeping it brief. Family dinner at my parents' house Sunday night. My mom insists. I waited. No reply. Just as I was about to give up, my phone buzzed. A single letter, K. K. Did that mean she'd go? I stared at the K for a full minute, trying to decipher its hidden meaning. Finally, I gave up and just decided to take it as a yes. On Sunday evening, I procrastinated until the last possible minute. When I got downstairs, Vivian was already waiting by the door. She wore an elegant dress, subtle makeup, and held a gift box. The perfect daughter-in-law. She looked at me, her expression blank. Let's go. Seeing her like this, a familiar anger flared. She could put on this act for my family, but couldn't even give me a civil word. The car ride was silent. When we arrived, the atmosphere shifted instantly. Vivian, dear, you're here. My mother beamed, rushing to take Vivian's hand and completely ignoring me. Come in, come in. Hi, Mom. Vivian's face transformed, her smile warm and gracious. She handed my mother the gift. Just a little something for you and Dad. Oh, you shouldn't have, my mother said, clearly delighted, leading her into the living room. You're looking thin. You must take care of yourself. My father, on the couch, even managed a rare smile. Vivian, Dad, she said, her voice soft. I watched this scene, a sour feeling in my stomach. Who was the actual child here? The dinner was a blur of aunts, uncles, and cousins, all fawning over Vivian. Vivian, you're more beautiful every time I see you. I heard you were the real brains behind that big project. Chase is so lucky to have you. I sat there, invisible, shoveling food into my mouth. Vivian handled it all with aplomb, charming everyone. She even put some food on my plate, her voice soft. Darling, have some of this. It's your favorite. I looked at the roast beef in my bowl, then at her flawless, smiling face, and felt sick. She was a hell of an actress. Halfway through the meal, my gossipy aunt turned her attention to me. Chase, with a wife as brilliant as Vivian, you really need to step up your game. My fork froze. Oh, Aunt Carol, don't say that. Vivian interjected smoothly, her hand lightly touching my leg under the table in a warning gesture. Chase was a huge help on the project. She was defending me. I glanced at her surprised. She continued, smiling at my aunt. And I think in a marriage, it's not about who's stronger. Mutual support is what's important. It was the perfect thing to say. It made me look good and her look gracious. My relatives nodded in agreement, but I felt worse than ever. Her defense felt like pity, or just another part of the act. The meal was an exercise in torture. Watching her play the perfect wife, being so gentle and supportive, knowing the cold reality between us, it was suffocating. When it was finally over, I practically dragged her out of the house. The drive back was even more tense. I stared straight ahead, my jaw clenched. As we neared our building, Vivian finally spoke, her voice tinged with exhaustion. Chase, we need to talk. Talk. My heart leaped. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. It was time. I slammed on the brakes, pulling the car over to the curb just outside the garage entrance. The engine idled, headlights cutting a bright rectangle into the darkness, moths dancing in the beams. Talk. She finally wanted to talk. My knuckles were white on the steering wheel. I kept my eyes fixed on the illuminated pavement ahead. Talk about what? My voice was a rasp. The car was silent, except for the whisper of the AC and my own ragged breathing. She didn't answer immediately. I couldn't take it. I whipped my head around to face her. She was already looking at me, in the dim light from the street lamps. Her face was a landscape of shadows. The perfect mask from dinner was gone, replaced by a look of exhaustion and struggle. Chase, she began, her voice quiet but clear in the small space. This isn't working. My stomach dropped. This? What this? The Cold War or us? What is it? I demanded, my tone sharp. Me not working. Were you avoiding me not working? She frowned. The project is over. Our partnership can end now. End now. My heart sank like a stone. So this was it. She was drawing the line, erasing the brief, unexpected connection we'd formed, and sending us back to where we started. No, to a place far worse. So what? I heard myself sneer. Use me up, and now you're throwing me away? You really are a master strategist, Sinclair. Her face paled, her eyes flashing. Chase, do you have to be like this? How should I be? My voice rose, all the frustration and hurt of the past week erupting. Should I pretend like you? Play the happy couple in public and be strangers behind closed doors? Aren't you tired of it, Vivian? Because I'm damn tired of watching you. I was panting, my chest heaving. She stared at me, stunned into silence by my outburst. Yeah, I was a fool that night. I never should have said it. I barreled on, the words tumbling out. I never should have had any stupid ideas about you. We're enemies. A family feud. How the hell could I forget that? Calm down, she said, trying to cut in. I can't calm down. I yelled. You stand there in front of my family pretending to be the perfect wife, and then you won't even look at me. What do you take me for? A prop. A business associate you can just turn on and off. The word prop hung in the air, stinging me with its truth. She fell silent, her gaze dropping, her long lashes shadowing her cheeks. Seeing her like that, my anger deflated, leaving only a bone-deep weariness. The car was quiet again. After a long time, she looked up, a new, desperate resolve in her eyes. Chase, besides the schemes and the acting, what else could there possibly be between us? Her quiet question was like a punch to the gut. What else could there be? I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. She was right. 20 years of animosity, generations of bad blood, the constant clash of our family interests. The fragile connection we'd built felt so insignificant in the face of all that. I tried, she whispered, and I could hear a faint tremor in her voice. I tried to see you as just a partner. I tried to ignore the other things. The other things. My heart stopped. She felt them too. Those other things? I stared at her, searching her eyes for confirmation. But she had turned away, looking out at the dark street. But it didn't work, she said with a dry, humorless laugh. Seeing you talk to another woman at a party, it bothered me. Hearing people say you weren't good enough for me, it made me angry. And when you asked me that question the other night, she trailed off. But I understood. My heart felt like it was being squeezed. She felt it too. It wasn't just me. The elation lasted only a second, quickly replaced by a profound sense of hopelessness. So what if we both felt something? What could we do? Abandon our families? Forget 20 years of history? Live out some cheesy romance novel fantasy where love conquers all? Don't be ridiculous. We were Chase Sterling and Vivian Sinclair. So, my voice was hoarse. You decided to avoid me? You thought if you didn't see me, it would all just go away. What else was I supposed to do? She turned back, her eyes shining with unshed tears, but her gaze was defiant. Keep going on like this in this gray area? And for what? So that one day, over some new project or some old grudge, we can tear each other apart again and destroy whatever ridiculous flicker of connection we have now. Her words were a scalpel, cleanly dissecting the ugly reality between us. There was no future, not one we could see. The hope that had just flared within me was extinguished by her own hand. I looked at her, and she looked at me. So close, yet separated by an uncrossable chasm. After a long time, I slumped back in my seat, covering my eyes with my hand. I get it, I said, my voice heavy with defeat. Let's just leave it. Leave it. Maintain the status quo. Play our parts. And bury those other things deep inside. She said nothing. I started the car and drove into the garage. The silence was our final agreement. And our greatest tragedy. Life settled into a new, bizarre, kind of normal. Vivian and I operated under an unspoken truce. A nod in the hallway at home. Professional emails for work. A united, polished front for public appearances. We were two parallel lines, forcibly bound together, but never truly meeting. I threw myself into work with a vengeance, trying to prove something, or maybe just try to escape something. I closed a few tough deals, earning some grudging respect from the old guard on my father's board. But there was still a hollow space inside me. Every night, coming home to that silent house, seeing the light under her door, or catching the faint scent of her perfume in the air, the emptiness was sharp and real. She seemed busier too, traveling frequently. Her presence in the house began to fade. Good, I told myself. Out of sight, out of mind. Until that afternoon. I came home early, hoping to catch a nap. As I walked in, I heard a muffled, choked sound from the master bedroom. Retching. I froze. She was home, and she was sick. I hesitated, then walked to her door and knocked. Hey, you okay in there? The sound stopped. After a moment, the door opened a crack. She stood there, her face ashen, a sheen of cold sweat on her forehead. She tried to muster her usual cool smile, but another wave of nausea hit her, and she clapped a hand over her mouth and bolted back to the bathroom. I stood in the doorway, listening to the miserable sounds of her dry heaving. The walls I'd so carefully built around my heart crumbled. I went to the kitchen, poured a glass of warm water, and walked to the bathroom. She was leaning over the sink, her body trembling. "Drink this," I said, holding out the glass. She just waved a weak hand. "What's wrong?" "Food poisoning," I asked. She finally straightened up and rinsed her mouth. Her reflection in the mirror was ghostly. "I'm fine," she rasped. "Probably just a stomach bug." She stumbled as she tried to walk out, and I instinctively reached out and grabbed her arm. It was ice cold. She tensed, but was too weak to pull away. "Get in bed," I said, half carrying her to the bed. She collapsed on the mattress, curling into a ball. Watching her, a wild, terrifying thought shot through my mind. That one night, after the project celebration, I'd been drinking. The memories were hazy, but had I gone into her room? Had we? No, it couldn't be. But her symptoms. My throat went dry. My heart started to race. I stared at her for a long moment, then turned, grabbed my phone, and made a call. "Dr. Evans, it's Chase Sterling. I need you to send a trusted OB/GYN over to my place." "Yes, right now. It's a private matter. Please be discreet." I hung up and leaned against the wall, my heart pounding. Please let me be wrong. The doctor, a kind-faced woman in her 50s, arrived quickly. I paced in the living room while she was in the bedroom with Vivian. Finally, the door opened. The doctor smiled at me. "Mr. Sterling," she said quietly. "Ms. Sinclair's fine. She's just having a rather severe case of morning sickness, and she's a bit run down. I prescribed something to help with the nausea and some prenatal vitamins. She just needs to rest, eat well, and schedule regular checkups." Boom. I didn't hear a word she said after morning sickness. That word exploded in my brain. Pregnant. She was pregnant with my child. I stood there, frozen, a chaotic mix of shock, panic, and a strange, thrilling flutter in my chest. "Mr. Sterling? Are you all right?" the doctor asked. I snapped back to reality. "Fine. Yes. Thank you, doctor." After seeing her out, I stood in front of the master bedroom door, my hand on the knob, unable to turn it. Finally, I took a deep breath and went in. She was leaning against the headboard, her eyes closed. She opened them when I entered, her expression calm, almost resigned. She knew. We stared at each other across the room. The silence was deafening. This news had just blown our carefully constructed world to pieces. Finally, I licked my dry lips and asked the stupidest question in human history. "Is it mine? Is it mine?" The moment the words left my mouth, I wanted to swallow them back. What a moronic thing to say. Whose else would it be? As messed up as our relationship was, that was a line neither of us would cross. Predictably, Vivian's eyes went glacial. The vulnerability vanished, replaced by a sharp, wounded pride. "Who else's would it be, Chase?" she shot back, her voice dangerously quiet. I flinched. I didn't mean it like that." "Then what did you mean?" She pushed herself up straighter, her gaze pinning me to the spot. "That I'm the kind of woman who sleeps around?" "No," I said too quickly. My mind was reeling. A baby? A baby with Vivian Sinclair? It was the most insane, earth-shattering concept I could imagine. I raked a hand through my hair, pacing in front of her bed. When did you know?" "Just now," she said, her tone flat, as if discussing the weather. "The doctor just left." "Right." Silence fell again. I stared at her stomach, still flat beneath the blankets. There was a life in there? Our baby. The thought sent a shiver through me. A strange, terrifying, and exhilarating feeling began to bloom in my chest. "What?" I swallowed, my voice hoarse. "What are you going to do?" She looked down, her fingers twisting in the sheets. "I don't know," she whispered. "I don't know." Those 3 words, spoken so softly, somehow calmed the storm inside me. At least she was as lost as I was. I walked to the window, staring out at the gray sky. Our families, our feud, all the baggage between us. And now this, a bond we could never break. This baby, was this the end of the feud? I turned and looked at the pale, fragile woman on the bed. She wasn't the corporate shark who had bested me my whole life. She was just a scared, newly pregnant woman. The hard shell around my heart cracked. I walked to the bed and sat on the edge. She flinched, pulling away slightly. That small movement hurt more than I expected. "Vivian," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "We're keeping it." She looked up, her eyes wide with disbelief. "What?" I said, "We're keeping it." I repeated, my resolve solidifying as I spoke. "It's our baby." "Chase, do you have any idea what you're saying?" she whispered. "Between us." "I know." I cut her off. "I know it's a mess, but the baby is innocent. He or she is coming, and that's that." I looked her in the eye, my voice softening. "And anyway, is having a baby really that different from how we're living now? A married couple, living in the same house, but strangers." She stared at me, her expression unreadable. "But..." "No buts," I said, a wave of stubborn protectiveness washing over me. "No child of mine is going to be a question mark. And no child of yours, either." I leaned in closer. "I'll take care of it. Of you." "Take care of it?" she scoffed, a bitter smile twisting her lips. "Ow! Give us a perfect little family? Don't be ridiculous, Chase." "I'm not being ridiculous." I snapped. "Forget the perfect family crap for a minute. I will not run from this. From this day on, you and the baby in your belly, you're mine to protect." The words sounded cheesy, possessive, but they were true. She just stared at me, the mockery fading from her eyes, replaced by a deep, weary confusion. After a long moment, she sighed and laid back down, turning her back to me. "I'm tired," she mumbled. "I want to sleep." Was that acceptance? I looked at her small, curled up form, so vulnerable. My heart ached with 100 different emotions. I stood up and awkwardly tucked the blanket around her. "Get some rest," I said. "I'll make you something to eat." I fled the room. Leaning against the wall in the hallway, I let out a long, shaky breath. A baby. My baby with Vivian Sinclair. Damn, life really does come at you fast. Okay, I thought, taking another deep breath. Let's see where this goes. Right? Me, Chase Sterling, 20-something, married, and about to be a father. The identity shift was giving me whiplash. My brain still felt like scrambled eggs. After I'd made my grand, "I'll protect you" declaration, an even stranger peace settled between Vivian and me. It wasn't the old Cold War. It was more like a temporary ceasefire after a massive, life-altering bomb had dropped. She didn't mention not keeping the baby again, but she wasn't exactly thrilled either. She was quiet, sick, and spent most of her time in her room, a ghost of her usual fiery self. And me? I was completely clueless. "I'll take care of you" is easy to say, but how? I found myself secretly Googling pregnancy tips for dads, my screen filling with lists of forbidden foods and must-do chores. No sushi, no deli meat, no soft cheeses, no caffeine. How was she going to give up her 5 espressos a day habit? And she needed emotional support, folic acid, regular checkups. I felt like someone had handed me an advanced calculus textbook and told me to build a spaceship. I tossed my phone aside and stared at the ceiling. This was more stressful than any multi-million-dollar deal. At least with a deal, you had a plan. This project had no plan, and my partner was an emotional minefield. But I made a promise. The next morning, I got up early and went into the kitchen. Armed with a nutritious pregnancy breakfast recipe from my phone, I proceeded to create chaos. I burned the toast, overcooked the eggs, and boiled the milk over. Finally, I carried a tray with a sad-looking sandwich and a glass of milk to her door. I knocked. "Come in," she mumbled. She was propped up against the pillows, looking pale. She stared at the tray, then at me, confused. "What's this?" "Breakfast," I said, trying to sound casual. "The doctor said you need nutrients." She looked at the charred sandwich, then back at me, a strange expression on her face. "It looks worse than it tastes," I said defensively. She took a small bite, chewing slowly. I held my breath. "It's edible," she finally said. I let out a sigh of relief, a ridiculous surge of pride welling up inside me. "Are you going to the office today?" I asked. "I have a meeting this afternoon." "I'll drive you." She looked at me for a second, then nodded. "Okay." The car ride was quiet, but I drove like a little old lady, slowing to a crawl over every bump. At a red light, I glanced at her in the rearview mirror. She was leaning against the window, her hand resting on her stomach. A strange feeling washed over me. There was really a tiny person growing in there. When we got to her office, she unbuckled her seatbelt. "Hey," I said. She looked at me. "Try to eat lunch," I mumbled. "And no coffee." A flicker of something, surprise, crossed her face before she nodded and got out of the car. Over the next few weeks, this became our new routine. My clumsy attempts at care, her quiet, grudging acceptance. The ice between us wasn't gone, but it was thinning. Then came the night she woke me with a frantic call from her room. I rushed in to find her violently ill, worse than ever before. I held her, rubbing her back, murmuring useless words of comfort. She was limp in my arms, exhausted and miserable. All the history between us, all the rivalry, it all seemed so stupid in that moment. She wasn't my enemy. She was the mother of my child, and she was suffering. I cleaned her up, brought her water, and sat with her until she finally drifted off into a restless sleep. As she was falling asleep, she reached for my hand, her grip weak. "Don't go," she whispered. My heart clenched. "I won't," I said, my voice thick. "I'm right here." I sat there all night, watching her sleep, and I knew, with absolute certainty, that everything had changed. There was no going back. After that night, the wall of ice between us began to truly melt. We started going to prenatal appointments together. The first time I saw the tiny, flickering heartbeat on the ultrasound screen, something inside me shifted forever. It was real. This tiny, stubborn little life was real. I held the grainy ultrasound picture like it was a winning lottery ticket. "It's just a little bean," Vivian said, trying to sound nonchalant, but I saw the soft smile she was trying to hide. "It's my bean," I said, puffing out my chest. "Our bean." Her morning sickness was replaced by bizarre cravings. One night at 2 a.m., she woke me up, wanting a specific kind of dumpling from a tiny shop across town. I drove all over the city. The shop was closed, but I finally found a decent substitute at an all-night diner. When I got back, she ate the whole thing, and I could have sworn her eyes were a little teary. "It's delicious," she'd whispered. "That was better than closing any deal." We even started going to birthing class together. I felt like a complete idiot trying to practice breathing exercises, but when she laughed at my awkwardness, a real, genuine laugh, I didn't care. Seeing her happy was becoming my new favorite thing. The night of the big corporate gala, she looked radiant in a custom maternity gown. We were playing our usual role of the power couple, but it didn't feel like an act anymore. When she went to the restroom, an old business rival of mine, a real slime ball named Todd, cornered me. "Heard the news, Sterling," he smirked. "Knocked up the ice queen, huh? But she's a real handful now. Hope you're surviving." Something inside me snapped. I grabbed him by his $1,000 tie and slammed him against the wall. "You ever talk about my wife like that again?" I snarled, my voice low and dangerous, "and I will personally ruin you. She is carrying my child. You will show her respect. Do you understand me?" He stammered an apology and scurried away. I turned, and Vivian was standing there, watching me, her eyes wide. I expected her to be angry at me for causing a scene. Instead, she walked over, took my hand, and laced her fingers through mine. We walked out of that party, hand in hand, leaving the whispers and stares behind us. I knew then, holding her hand, that it wasn't just about the baby anymore. Later that week, walking home from a birthing class, she stopped under a street lamp. "Chase," she said, her voice soft. "This baby, after it's born, we're we." My heart pounded in my chest. This was it. I stepped closer, cupping her face in my hands. What are we?" I said, my voice firm. "This baby is a Sterling. You are my wife. Vivian Sinclair, you're stuck with me. You always have been, and you always will be." Tears welled in her eyes, but she was smiling. "You're still such an arrogant jerk," she whispered. "Yeah," I smiled back, leaning in. "But I'm your arrogant jerk." And I kissed her. It wasn't a kiss of truce or a kiss of convenience. It was a kiss that had been waiting 20 years to happen, a kiss that sealed every argument, every battle, and every angry word into something new. Something that felt a lot like a beginning.